Hey, Claudia, here we are again.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. So just because these videos are now going up on BitChute and where people followed us on YouTube, and then we went silent for a couple of years, I just want to do a really brief introduction, okay? We started, what was it, in 2015, a series of videos on YouTube called Forbidden Subjects.
Yep.
Because at that time, and even now, it's still the truth. There are things that people aren't allowed to talk about. And one of the things that both of you and I have in common, besides our own research, you in German, which was really fortunate, was a love of words and etymology of the word and attention to the words we speak so that we know what we're saying when we open our mouths, which is so sadly lacking in the world today.
Oh
And
my goodness.
it's what I want to address. Much more than you, I've been paying attention to a lot of geopolitical analysis of what's going on in Palestine, what's going on in the Ukraine. And unfortunately, because it's so deeply embedded in the human psyche, the word Nazi gets used again and again and again, right? And so somehow this group that now people are talking about Zionism, that the Zionists are related to Nazis, which to me is not even logical.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah, it's a polar opposite of the truth. So, but
Yes.
it's so prevalent. And I've been wanting to address this for a while. And I usually want to write to these people, have you really looked at the history, right? So let's just take apart the word Nazi for a minute. Okay, where did it come from? What does it refer to? Why does Nazi stand for the most evil agenda on planet Earth when it's really Zionism? And that's even a broad spectrum term, and I don't think we'll go deeply into that today. But we were just talking, and it's like, look at the word Nazi, Zai, right at the end of it, right? So who made this word? Did the Germans, National Socialists, call themselves Nazis?
No, as far as I know, they never did. Even though I forgot to mention that before we started to record. It would be Nationalsozialist in German. So the first part of the first word and the second part of the second word. So the German, if you use the German word for it, that would actually be that term,
It was
Nazi.
okay. Yeah.
But no, I think it's a word play with the Zai.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a psyop. I mean,
Well,
that comes first to mind, and it is because we've already established that the so-called Nazis stand for the polar opposite of everything that this system that we have now, that is absolutely 100% steeped in commerce, and a wicked one at that, because the first thing that goes out of the window in this system of commerce is truth. Whereas in proper commerce, truth is above everything.
mm-hmm. So explain that more in your own words, Claudia. Like true commerce, truth is primary in that. So and that's another subject that we might lead into today. What is true commerce?
Well, it's basically you know, in the most simple terms, you have an item to sell, you tell what it is, you don't embellish it, you just say what it is, you show it, and then someone can buy it, and you have a deal, right? You set up a contract, which could be written or by handshake, and that's the end. You gain, and whoever buys it gains.
Right. And so then
So there has been a meeting of the minds, and it's all based on what is true. There is now, I mean, just look at any advertisement. it makes, I mean, it gives me the creeps, the amount of lies
Hmm.
that are just in one ad.
Hmm. Yeah.
So in this system of commerce that we have, and that everyone has been basically cheated into, because nobody told us, or nobody told our parents that they literally give away their child to the state if they get a birth certificate and all that.
Hmm.
So everything is based on it's pure deception.
Yeah. And even more so now than ever, right? Because
Yeah.
honor's gone out of commerce, right?
Oh,
And
yeah, there is no honor.
right. So there's regulations. You can't say this, you can't sell that. I listened to a very interesting exchange between Owen Benjamin and a guy named Brian from High Impact Flicks last night, because Owen was saying that we're living in a time of the least government tyranny we've ever lived in, and that human beings need government. I'm kind of getting off the Nazi subject, but I'll wind back to it. And it was like so eye-opening for me that when somebody, in this case, Owen Benjamin, doesn't have a ground to stand on, he turned to ad hominems, name calling, talking over, interrupting. And it went on for like 2.5 hours. And Brian from High Impact Flicks, which he's about anarchy, which anarchy people means no rulers. And so I'm going to try to weave this back into what happened in Germany, but um, so it was fascinating and painful and pathetic to watch. I was just like, so we have embedded in our human consciousness several non-truths that so many people believe are true that they don't even question it. And number one, among Benjamin's arguments, Owen, Benjamin's arguments. Oh, Benjamin. Oh, I wonder if that's a Jewish name. Okay, excuse me. I got to throw in a little humor here. Was that human beings are basically evil and they will run amok and hurt each other if there's no government to rule over them.
I can't agree with that.
I can't either. And see, for me, I've been saying this to people that I meet, I'm thinking about it all the time. Almost every single human I have a conversation with will say humans were always tend towards evil. And so we need rulers to keep us in alignment. And it's such a falsehood. And it runs through so many of the ways that we deal with each other that it's a great lie.
Mhm.
So we're in consciousness, in a conscious beingness, we're here to bring forth the fact that that is not true. Most human beings are not evil. Most human beings just
No,
want,
they're innately good, I
yes,
would say.
yeah.
I mean, the one point about most of humans is that they want a ruler. They want a king. I mean, even the Bible stated that
Mm-hmm.
humans want a ruler. But I think that might be more out of insecurity to ensure that they always do the right thing rather than do wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be a fear of doing wrong
Yeah. But even
rather than, oh, you must rule over me and we can't exist without rulers. Because I mean, that's bullshit.
yeah.
I
And
don't need a rule.
if we're moving through the great epoch and a great paradigm where everything is obvious in our world, all systems are breaking down. And as they break down all these systems, of course, there's this group that wants to control and bring everybody into the digital realm and the frame. So that's going on simultaneously. The good news is that this paradigm does need to break down. And that's why when you can become a voice of consciousness and help people understand, look around you, friends. I mean, I see people make mistakes all the time. I make mistakes, right? I have enough awareness that I either had a mistaken thought or a mistaken belief, or maybe I didn't do something from the highest aspect of my own being, but I can become self correcting, right? By being
Mhm.
honest first with myself. And so in that honesty and in that state, I can transpire that sometimes verbally, sometimes just energetically. You're good people. Quit being afraid. If
Yeah.
you look into your heart, who really wants to do harm to another human being? People make mistakes, they're messed up, they're in traumatized family situations, all sorts of issues going on. They're jabbed, they take too many pharmaceuticals, all fluoride, all of that that is diminished human. But how many humans really want to do harm to someone else?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. You know, and so this is one of the biggest mind traps that I see out there. So I address that quite oftenly. And and then let me go back to the whole historical, okay, if we will. That's another thing people say all the time. Oh, look at history. All throughout history, we've suffered war.
We don't know our history.
Exactly.
I mean, 90% of what's written in history books is lies.
Hmm. Right.
So
So,
how can we look at our history if we don't know what the fuck it is?
right. And even as we can peel back those layers of the hidden history of humankind, right, and get past some of the scripts and get past some of the dogmas and all of that, something else is emerging. It wasn't always this way, you
Mhm.
know, and just as, let's say, I'm sitting on a rural property, and if somebody came to rob me, I have the right to defend myself and the property that I'm caretaking, right? And I could see that could happen when we were much more tribal people. But those fights were actually had some honor code behind them,
Yeah.
right? And so, but the war as it's practiced, as it's been practiced, and certainly since World War One and before that, but let's just take World War One as a starting point, were all engineered for the benefit of a so-called ruling class.
Yes.
So there we go with the
Absolutely.
rulers thing again, right? So if most human beings don't feel capable yet of being their own responsible being, they tend to follow the narrative of the majority that they hear without
Yeah.
stopping and thinking. And that's where I get into this whole thing with Nazi, because I look at it and I go, okay, you and I have studied extensively for over a decade, you know, what was actually going on with National Socialist Germany, right? Now that
Mm.
is not going to work again because we have a diverse population and a whole thing about diversity. Very few people actually have a sense of nation anymore. My country where,
No, it's multicultural
yeah,
everywhere. I mean,
right.
thanks to, the ruling class.
Yeah. But so, you know, I mean, there's so much stuff to disclose in that. And maybe I'll put up some links so people can find other information if they're interested. Again, I would challenge anybody that might hear this. Don't just take this as for a fact. It's not a fact, right? There was a real cause and effect of what happened in Germany at the end of World War One. They were decimated people. Somebody came to power, okay, that brought the nation back together for the pride of their own being, for the pride of their heritage. It was, I think, in so many ways, what most people that are in the quote unquote, you know, what do you want to call it, freedom movement,
Mm.
right? What they embrace, family life, having children, living in the rural, you know, so it wasn't like communist socialism as we're seeing rolled out today, which is,
Not at
and here,
all. Nothing could, it couldn't
yeah,
be further from that.
right. And it just is like when I see things that get so deeply embedded in the human zeitgeist, if you want to say it that way, where nobody stops to think, why am I saying this? Why am I just going along with this narrative? And
Yeah.
not realizing that at this particular moment, this confusion between Zionism, which is only one branch of Judaism, all right, it's political. Why everybody refers to them as the new Nazis? I mean, there's no logical analytical, critical thinking going on when you keep repeating that line?
None whatsoever.
Yeah. And, you know, I've left a wide berth for some very intelligent people that I listen to. And because I know they're bringing forward some real true things that are happening right now on the planet. But it's this one thing, and it's always like sticks in my craw. You know, it's like, man, you know, and I mean, I'm certainly not like anti-Semitic, which is another name, another word that has no meaning, right?
No.
And so just to say it one more time, people, the Semitics is referring to a language. So if you're anti-Semitic, you're anti a group of people that spoke this language.
Including Arabic.
Exactly. Includes the Arabs, you know, it really has nothing to do with an identity with Judaism. It just doesn't. And yet they've captured this term like, you know, you can just throw it at people and they're going to run away. Ah, they called me Anna. And I just laugh, you know, and I think that word is that ploy, that propaganda, it's starting to fall apart pretty fast. So maybe we'll peel back enough layers so people will stop talking about the Nazis as if they were the most evil people on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's something I've wanted to verbalize for a while. And I don't know how much further I want to take it. But, you know, I do know enough and I have studied enough. And I know I'm not 100%. Nobody can ever be 100% sure of anything within this reality, right? I can only go with what resonates with me personally, what I understand personally, whatever time I've spent on my own investigation. You know, would never claim that I'm holding the ultimate truth about this, but I think my purpose is to get people to just stop long enough, you know, in this and go, do I know? Is there other things that I haven't looked at? Am I brave enough? Do I have enough courage to look into the forbidden landscape and start tracking some of this and seeing how this got played out? It's the same thing that's happening right now. It's exactly the same storyline. They're using it all over again. They're wanting to start this World War III thing, you know.
Well, I mean, none of the world wars has ever finished. So we've been in a world war perpetually since 1914.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Except, you know, people are entirely ignorant to that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, try and find the peace agreements for, you know, to end World War I, and then try and find the peace agreement between Germany and the Allied forces. It's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And and you know, there's plenty of proof out there. Like the US can just go into a country and occupy it and bomb it into pieces without declaring war. Well, they couldn't do that if they weren't already in a war situation.
Interesting, because I've never thought it along that exact line, but that is very true because
Yeah,
the US is taking Syria's oil. You know, they're in Iraq and Iraq keeps saying, would you leave, please? We don't want you here. But, you know, so yes, there is this assumption that they can go and do anything, that Biden
it's
can start
essentially
bombing Yemenis ships because he said so. Was it
it's all the Allied forces, and including Japan, because Japan does have a peace agreement now. Hasn't had it for very long, but they do have it now. So that basically means all the countries with a central bank, excluding the real Germany. I'm not talking about the Banana Republic. And if they don't do as the boss tells them, they're going to get into trouble, i.e., bombing of the population. We've seen it with, you know, Iraq, Iran, Israel, Afghanistan, you name it. None of them had declared, none of them came about by a declaration of war.
No. No.
It all just,
Well, I had
Biden or
never really
whoever
thought
the
they don't
president
think
is wakes up one morning and goes, right, today we're going to bomb this country.
Right.
And then sends their cannon fodder. And you couldn't, I mean, this could not be done if there were peace in the world.
So what you're saying
It
basically is there's no peace treaties anywhere. So we've been at a continual state of war since the beginning of World
1914.
War 14. And so they're operating under a system, a criminal law system that has given them the rights to do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, basically.
Mhm. So as human beings, as is what we're going to see happening, and what do you feel is our strongest um rebuttal to this lie? Like how do we go about getting ourselves out of the lie system, number one, and doing our own inner work? But do you see a movement or something happening that's going to change the script, that's going to, or are they just going to keep revealing themselves for the monsters they are until enough human beings?
My feeling is that if we continue what we've been doing, and I mean, you and I and quite a few others, and that is being absolutely truthful, because that's where it starts.
Mhm.
And that way, there'll be more and more revelations, of course, about the true state of the world currently. And eventually, people will realize that they don't have to feed that system.
Mhm.
Yeah, we might get in trouble. We might have trouble finding food even, or not being able to travel because we don't want any digital ID or whatever else they have in store. But right now, they're being slowed down anyway.
Mhm.
Um, and they have been slowed down quite a number of times over the years, but it seems like this slowing down is happening more and more.
Mhm.
And that is because if you look at natural law, we all feed the human collective. So if more and more people only speak what is true, only accept what is true, and discard all the lies, then the human collective will reflect that.
Mhm.
That is absolutely inevitable, because as much as, they would love to break the law, you can't break a natural law. It's just not possible. I mean, we're not talking about a legal system here.
No.
And so it's a natural consequence. And eventually, they'll just go poof because they will not have the energy that feeds them.
Mhm. Yeah. And like I brought up earlier when I was saying, it's like wherever shadow or evil, or I mean, one has to look within their own heart, first of all. That's the first place you have to find truth. It
Yeah.
doesn't, it's not even a logical mental exercise. It's not.
No.
And so once you find,
I mean, there are like little things that make quite an impact, little stupid things. I mean, I'm very blunt, right? And I have friends, and they sort of mindlessly buy some chocolate and it's Nestle, and I would go like, you do know that you're condoning their genocide in the third world, and the opinion that we need to pay for water. You condone that with your action of buying their product.
Mhm.
And they all go like, huh? No, I don't disagree with it. And I'm like, yeah, but you are agreeing with it by buying it.
Mhm.
And it might stop them for 2 minutes, but if it's pointed out often enough, they might actually start thinking seriously about not buying that stuff.
Well, that's what my
And
little
at least they stop buying it when I'm around.
But see, that's how we influence each other, actually. And I noticed that during the lockdown bullshit and all of that, that people
Yeah.
that would come around my little cafe, they were adamant mask wearers, and they got the jabs and all of the jibby jab, as my friend calls it. But I'd watch them walk across the parking lot, and then it would be like, they would take their mask off and put it in their pocket, because they were now entering a field that the predominant field was there, that we're free. We're not afraid of each other. We don't have to do these things, right? And promptly, and they walk away and they go back and they put it on. This is, if you just look at that as a simplistic example of
Yeah.
how we do influence by
Yeah.
really being an open-hearted being, and even though it made me go, I still didn't reject them.
No.
No, it's like having this open door. I'm not going to
Yeah.
reject you. I'm not going to belittle you. I'm not, because what I was saying earlier, that evil, and I've said it again and again, it has the seeds of its own destruction. Right now, with the way everything is, it's going to reveal itself.
Oh,
And
yeah.
somebody like an Owen Benjamin that's got a big popularity, or some other people that are in the scene, so to speak, they are rapidly revealing themselves. So I can only say, as a compassionate being, take these incidences. I don't think you're evil people. I don't put you in a camp where, oh, no, you
Mm.
now have an opportunity to do some self-reflection,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And so do that self-reflection, and feel your discomfort, and allow that discomfort to be
Yeah.
your lesson.
I'm gonna say it can be extremely uncomfortable, and cause like you want to bang your head against the wall. But once you've done it 1,000 times, it kind of becomes a habit.
Yeah. Well,
And
it does, and it's even
you know,
welcoming a state of discomfort. Like,
yeah,
okay, I'm
yeah,
not comfortable.
exactly.
There's something in me that I'm not comfortable with, this that I am right now. Where is this coming from? What other layer do I have to peel back in myself? And
Yeah.
I had a really interesting, not to make it too long, but I was having a conversation with a friend, right? And she's fairly new here, and we were out to dinner, and it was a bit awkward. It was one of I was really low energy that day. And and then I'm stating forth this, that I am, right? The idea of myself and who I am and
Mhm.
how I am in the world, and my relationship to money and all of this, right? And and she's coming from just another layer of, like, professionalism and charging for what you do and all of that. And I know I've been on the tip of the spear for a long time, because the whole current fiat money system is going to break down, and we do have to find another way. But I went to the bathroom at the end of our talk, and I just started laughing my ass off at myself, because I went, wait a minute, Christine. Okay, you have all these life experiences. They've all taught you things. They're part of your story of how you view the world, and the lens in which I view the world. So I challenged myself, what can I drop here? Like,
Yeah.
what layer of identity within me can I drop at this moment, right? Is there another way that I don't see, because I'm holding on to my past storyline? And but, like, fortunately, it made me laugh, and I can say
Mhm.
these things, and so this is another process that I feel, as we're moving more into an etherical realm, an etherical state of being, less physicality, understanding we are beings of resonance, and we are electrical beings in sense. It's just one more layer off of that, right? Of
Mhm.
identity. How do
Yeah.
I identify myself, right? How can I get more free of that? How can I be a more pure expression of what I just say now is divine light?
Yeah.
It doesn't need a name. It doesn't need a religion. It doesn't need a doctrine. It's within all of us. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, in that sense, if I can be of any service to others to remove one layer, it's only one layer at a time. You can't get,
Exactly.
you can't
Baby
get,
steps.
and that's why this whole thing with this bullshit Nazi word, you know, I mean, it's so illogical to me at this point,
It is.
you know? And at first I thought, okay, well, that's okay. Let them use this as a pointing out that genocide's happening, right?
Mhm.
And I thought, no, we have to get past this too. We can't keep aligning the very enemy of National Socialist Germany. It's such a confusing thing, and yet it's so simple. You know, the same element
Yes.
that wanted to control and genocide the Germans and still wants to genocide the Germans is creating genocide in our faces, on our live screen, right? And people keep calling them Nazis. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Mhm.
And
It's
so,
like they're holding on to that last hope of not having been lied about something.
mhm, yeah. And then if we all get into this connected vibratory state of being where we are really all connected, right? We're just having these separate fractal realities, Claudia talking to Christine and me talking to you. The closer we get into that state of you do see very clearly that there is an element here in this realm right now that doesn't share in that. It knows it exists. And yes, it's part of it, but it's so corrupted. It's like such a corruption. And we all are under the threat of genocide. Every
Yeah,
single one of us, right?
absolutely. I
And
mean, it's not just, the needlework.
no,
There's a whole lot more to it.
yeah. And any way and every way possible, you know, and whatever they're going to roll out this year, may it fall flat. Maybe more people wake up to it. Quit believing in the fear propaganda. I mean, fear porn is the biggest thing I see, and so many people participate in it. You know, how
Oh,
can
yeah.
you talk about the plans of the WHO or whatever and not use it fearfully? How can we look at it without, oh, you know, they've got all these technologies, you know, optogenetics and all the things. Well, yeah, that's
Like,
all.
you don't need to accept their technology,
No, if
even
you
if they
talk
do
to
impose it on you, like 5G and all that, but you can make a conscious decision to reject it. And I'm pretty convinced it will not affect you
no, it won't. As a matter
then.
of fact, you can overwrite it. If you get to a clear enough,
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
overwrite it, right? You can embed within it consciousness, right? So it's not, but if you're in fear, you're not going to be able to
Oh,
do,
then it grabs you. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
it's like a
So
fear.
yeah, I mean, I really like our little conversations, Claudia, and I would like to keep this one short. That's another thing that's very apparent is like people's attention span, and it's fine. I understand it with myself, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
like we're being bombarded with information all the time. You know, so discernment and if you're going to listen to something like I chose to listen to this Owen Benjamin revealing, you know, it's like I have to still maintain a certain set of compassionate consciousness. Hey, that's a new word, compassionate consciousness, right? You're not taking sides. You're just
Yeah.
observing what is happening. And whatever conclusion I can draw from it is really like, oh, I see what's going on. So whatever needle, eye of the needle we have to get through this year, I think we've gone through more than one eye of the needle, frankly. You know, like let's just keep talking consciousness, Claudia.
Mhm.
It's the only thing that I can see, and I think I will coin compassionate consciousness.
It's a nice term. I like it.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, we've said what we wanted to say, and
Yeah, yeah,
any more would only result in rambling.
yeah. So we'll come back to this and let's just keep doing this, you know, maybe once a week
Yeah,
we get something
exactly.
and I'm going to stop our recording. Love you, girl.
Love you too.